My name is Natalie Reeves. I'm 30 years old. And 17 years ago, on one of the worst nights of my life, a November night so cold and mean the rain felt like it had a personal grudge against me, my father looked me dead in the eye and said, "Get out! I don't want a messed up daughter like you under my roof." I was 13 years old. Soaking wet. Nowhere to go. Let that land for a second. 13. I wasn't a rebellious teenager. I wasn't some troubled kid with a history of acting out. I was a straight-A 8th grader who still had glow-in-the-dark stars on her bedroom ceiling. And my own father threw me out into a flooding storm like I was nothing. Here's what makes it even harder to swallow. The person who did this to me wasn't younger than me, smaller than me, or someone I could chalk up to being immature. My brother Tyler was 15 years old. 2 years older than me. A sophomore in high school. Old enough to know exactly what he was doing, and he did it anyway. He told a lie. Not a clumsy mistake. Not a kid slipping up under pressure. A carefully constructed, deliberately executed, multi-layer lie, the kind that takes planning, patience, and a cold willingness to destroy someone you grew up with. And my parents believed every single word of it without asking me one question. Just like that, I was erased from my own family. 3 hours later, a police officer called my parents from a hospital. I'd been hit by a car. When my dad walked into that hospital room and saw who was sitting at my bedside, his hands wouldn't stop shaking. He stopped dead in the doorway and went pale as a sheet. You can't be here. How did you even? The woman sitting beside me was Dr. Renee Harper, professor of social policy at the State University. Award-winning researcher. One of the most respected educators in the region. She had found me bleeding on the side of a road in the rain and hadn't left my side since. That night changed absolutely everything. Last spring, I stood on stage at my brother's college graduation as the keynote speaker. My parents had no idea I was coming. Before I tell you what happened the moment they saw my face, please take a moment to like and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy this story. Also, I'd love to know where you're watching from and what time it is there. Drop a comment below. Now, let me take you all the way back to where this really started because you need to understand exactly how we got here. In our house, Tyler was the golden one. The firstborn. The one who could do no wrong. My parents looked at him like he was proof that they'd done something right in this world. He was charming, loud, the center of every room, and my parents handed him that power like a gift and never once thought to ask what he'd do with it. I was 2 years younger, and I learned early that there were 2 sets of rules in our family. Tyler's tears meant something. Tyler's feelings were urgent. Tyler's problems required immediate action. When I had a problem, I was expected to handle it myself, be mature about it, not make a fuss. I was the younger one. I was supposed to look up to my big brother. I was 10 years old when I won first place at the regional science fair. My project on renewable water filtration beat out 38 other kids from across the district. I was so proud I could barely breathe. I ran home clutching that blue ribbon, burst through the front door yelling, "Mom, I won! I actually won." She smiled. She hugged me. It was nice for about 45 seconds. Then Tyler came in from baseball practice, 12 years old, face red, already talking before the door shut behind him. "Coach is starting Danny at first base again instead of me. It's not fair. I've been practicing every single day. Everyone on the team knows I'm better." Mom's arms left me. She turned straight to him. "Oh, sweetheart. That sounds really frustrating. Let's talk about it." I stood in the doorway holding my blue ribbon. Nobody asked to see it. That was the pattern. Tyler's disappointments were crises. My achievements were nice. I learned to celebrate quietly, to need less, to shrink down and take up less space. By the time I was 12, I'd stopped showing my parents my report cards at all. Straight A's didn't compete with Tyler's drama. When I got accepted into a prestigious summer research program with a full scholarship to work alongside actual environmental scientists, Dad looked up from the newspaper for 2 seconds and said, "That's nice, Nat." Tyler, 14 and already acting like the world owed him something, actually laughed. A science nerd camp? Come on. That's her big thing. Mom told him to be kind. She did not tell him to be quiet. She did not ask me about the program. That conversation was already over. I didn't go to the program. Some excuse about family plans that summer. I stopped fighting for the things I wanted. I told myself to be patient. Tyler had always gotten away with small stuff, borrowing my things without asking, blaming me when he broke something, turning on the charm whenever a parent walked into the room. I'd brush it off because what was the point? But when I was 11 and he was 13, something shifted. Money went missing from Mom's wallet. $40. Tyler, 13 years old and cool as ice, walked into the kitchen the next morning and said, casually like it just occurred to him, that he'd seen me lingering near Mom's purse the day before. I had been at school for an hour by the time it went missing. I had a bus pass that recorded the timestamp. Nobody checked. Dad called me into his office. That room always felt like a courtroom. "Did you take money from your mother?" "No, Dad. Tyler says he saw you near her purse." Tyler's lying. His jaw tightened. Your brother has never given me a reason to doubt him. I didn't take anything. Enough. One word. Like a door slamming. I'm disappointed in you, Natalie. I thought you were better than this. I lost my phone for 3 weeks. The summer program I'd been promised for the following year gone. We can't trust you with that kind of independence right now, Mom told me with a look that said she'd already moved on. Tyler watched from the staircase. When my parents' backs were turned, he looked at me with a small, satisfied smile. Not the smile of a kid who'd gotten lucky. The smile of someone who had just run a successful experiment. That $40 was a test run. He was figuring out exactly what he could get away with, and the answer apparently was everything. Pattern escalated over the next 2 years. A broken window, my fault. A failing grade Tyler earned all on his own. I must have distracted him. A rumor at school that Tyler had been caught cheating. I must have been the source. Each lie was more polished than the last. Each performance more convincing. A 15-year-old is not a little kid. A 15-year-old who lies with that kind of skill and consistency is doing it on purpose with full understanding of what he's doing. I stopped defending myself. What was the point? Every single time their version of events had Tyler's conviction in it, which meant I lost automatically. By 13, I felt like a ghost in my own house. Present but invisible unless someone needed someone to blame. I started spending every spare hour at the library or staying late at school, anywhere that wasn't home. I told myself I just needed to survive until graduation. A few more years, then college, then somewhere nobody knew Tyler's version of me. I could start completely over. I was wrong. I was in 8th grade. Tyler was a sophomore, same school, 2 years ahead, already one of those guys everyone knew. Popular, funny, the kind of older kid who made freshmen feel special if he talked to them. My parents adored this version of him. They had no idea what he was like when the audience was just me. There was a boy named Caleb in my after-school science club. Same grade as me, 8th grade. Genuinely smart and funny, the kind of kid who stayed after class to ask real questions rather than just get out of there. We were assigned as partners for the school's science showcase project, a water filtration system model. We stayed after school on Tuesdays and Thursdays in Mr. Peterson's classroom, along with 6 other students, to work on it together. That was the full extent of our friendship. Tyler had developed an intense, consuming crush on a girl named Jade, a freshman whose locker was down the hall from mine. He'd asked me repeatedly if she'd ever said anything about him. He'd asked me to put in a good word. He'd asked me what she was like. I told him the truth, I barely knew her. She was just a girl I passed in the hallway. What I didn't know was that Jade had spoken to Caleb a few times in the hallway, the kind of small school thing that means nothing, and Tyler had seen it. In Tyler's mind, his little sister's science partner had caught the eye of the girl he liked, and somehow that was my fault for introducing them to the same space. One Tuesday after our project session, Caleb and I walked out of school together, still talking about the filtration model. Tyler was standing across the parking lot waiting for his ride. He saw us. I watched his expression shift from bored to something harder in the space of about 2 seconds. He didn't say a word. He just watched. That night at dinner, he barely touched his food and didn't speak once. I should have known that Tyler going silent was more dangerous than Tyler making noise. Quiet meant he was building something. 1 week later, on a Friday in November, the storm came in. Wind advisories, flood warnings, the kind of system that shuts the whole city down. We ate dinner with Dad's phone buzzing every few minutes with weather alerts. Tyler had barely looked at me all week, just watched me sometimes when he thought I wasn't noticing, that same calculating expression from the parking lot. I figured I'd have the weekend to work on my science showcase report in peace. I had no idea what was about to happen. Around 8 o'clock, I heard it from upstairs. Tyler, down in the living room, crying. Not regular crying, theatrical, gut-wrenching, the kind of performance that fills a whole house. I put down my pencil and sat completely still, listening. "Sweetheart, what's wrong?" Mom's voice. Already soft, already worried. More crying. Ragged. Practiced. "Natalie." Dad's voice came up the stairs like a thunderclap. "Get down here. Right now." Came down slowly. Tyler was on the couch with his face buried in Mom's shoulder, shoulders heaving. Dad stood by the fireplace with his arms crossed and his jaw set. He'd already decided something. I could see it in the way he was standing. There was no open question in that room. "What's going on?" I asked, keeping my voice steady. Tyler lifted his head. Eyes red and swollen and streaming. And for just a fraction of a second, less than a heartbeat, I saw it. Something dry and precise hiding underneath all that performance. Something that was completely in control. Then the performance snapped back into place. "Tell her what you told us," Dad said quietly. Tyler's lip trembled. His voice came out small and broken. "Why do you hate me so much?" "I don't hate you." "Then why?" He pulled in a shuddering breath. "Why have you been going around school telling people I steal? Telling people I cheat? Sending messages to people saying I lied about my grades just to impress Jade? Now she thinks I'm a fraud because of you." The floor lurched underneath me. "I never said any of that. You told people about me." His voice cracked. "I heard you on Tuesday, walking out to the parking lot with Caleb, laughing. You were pointing back at me. And then the messages started showing up in the baseball team chat. We were talking about our science project. You told people on the baseball team stuff about me." His voice rose. "You sent messages to kids in my grade. You told them I've been lying to Jade about my grades, that I'm failing 2 classes, that I'm a fraud. Now everyone on the team is calling me that, and Jade won't even respond to my texts anymore. You did this on purpose because you were jealous that I had someone who liked me. You've always been jealous of me. We were talking about our science project. I didn't point at you. I didn't send anyone anything." "Show her," Dad said. Tyler reached into his pocket and pulled out his phone with trembling hands. He turned the screen toward my parents first. A long screenshot of what looked like a group chat, my name and my profile photo at the top, message after message tearing Tyler apart. Telling people he copies his homework. Mocking his GPA. Calling him an embarrassment in front of his friends. Saying Jade deserved better than a guy who lied about everything. Every message was worded to sound exactly like me, my vocabulary, my sentence patterns, but saying things I would never say, had never said, had never even thought. I didn't write those. My voice came out barely above a whisper. Someone made a fake account. Look at the username, it's different from mine by one letter. Natalie. Mom's voice, quiet and cutting at the same time. Mom, please, I'm telling you. And then, Tyler said, his voice dropping lower, more wounded, more deliberate, you shoved me. On the stairs this morning. When no one was looking, he slowly pushed up the sleeve of his hoodie. A bruise on his forearm, dark purple and fresh, exactly the kind you'd get from hitting a stair rail. I didn't want to say anything. I kept thinking maybe you were just stressed about school. But then I found out what you've been doing to my reputation, the messages you sent, and His voice broke beautifully. I can't keep pretending everything is fine when you treat me like this. A 15-year-old. He had the fake screenshots, a manufactured bruise, a precise emotional timeline, a motive that made me sound jealous and petty, and he delivered it all without a single inconsistency. He had been planning this for at least a week. Maybe longer. I understood in that moment, standing in that living room, that I was already finished. The verdict was in before I opened my mouth. I didn't push you, I said, and my voice shook. I didn't write those messages. Someone cloned my profile. Tyler, you know what you're doing. I know what I saw, he said, and his voice had gone completely steady. Enough. Dad's fist came down on the mantel and the whole room shook. Your brother is sitting there with a bruise on his arm. He has screenshots. He has a timeline. And all you have is denials. Because I didn't do it. There is something wrong with you. He pointed at me. Right at me. Like I was a problem he was finally ready to stop ignoring. Something is seriously wrong with you, Natalie, that you would do this to your own brother. You need professional help. But right now I need you out of my sight. Dad. Storming outside. I'm 13 years old. I don't care. Where am I supposed to go? That, he said, his voice going flat and hollow and final, is not my problem. Get out. I don't want a messed up daughter like you under this roof. Messed up daughter. Said with such certainty. Like he'd been thinking it for a long time, and this was just the first time he'd said it out loud. I looked at Mom. 5 full seconds I stood there, looking at her, willing her to say something. To stop this. To be a mother. She pulled Tyler closer and looked away. I grabbed my jacket off the hook. My hands were shaking so hard I couldn't work the zipper. I yanked the door open and the storm hit me like a wall of cold water. The door slammed behind me. I turned back once. Through the window, Tyler was watching me walk away. He wasn't crying anymore. He was watching me go with the calm, satisfied expression of someone who had completed a task. The rain hit me like something with a grudge. Cold, relentless, coming sideways. I was soaked through before I reached the end of the driveway. I stood there on the sidewalk for a full minute, telling myself Dad would open the door. That some parental instinct would kick in. That 13 years of raising me would amount to something in that moment. The door stayed shut. I started walking. Nowhere in particular. Just away from that house, away from Tyler's performance, away from parents who looked at their 13-year-old daughter in a floodstorm and made a choice to leave her there. My phone had 9% battery. I called my friend Priya. Straight to voicemail. I tried Dominique. No answer. Friday night. Everyone was home with their families, safe and dry, exactly where a 13-year-old child should be. The wind was vicious. Rain coming in sheets so heavy I could barely see 10 feet in front of me. My shoes were waterlogged, squelching with every step, my jacket doing nothing against the cold. I headed toward the public library. Maybe I could sit in the lobby, wait out the worst of it. Locked. Dark. The bus station was almost 2 miles away. If I could just get there. Sit somewhere dry. Think. Figure out what to do. I walked through thunder that rattled my bones and lightning that cracked the sky open every few minutes. I thought about going back. Knocking on my own door. Begging. But then I'd see his face again. That pointing finger. That flat, hollow voice. Messed up daughter. And I thought, maybe he's right. Maybe there is something wrong with me. Why else would my own parents choose Tyler's word over mine every single time for years and years and years? I never saw the headlights until it was almost too late. I was crossing an intersection. The light was green, I'm certain of it to this day. But the rain was a wall and the wind was pushing me sideways, and the car came around the corner faster than it had any business going in those conditions. Headlights. Horn. Brakes screaming on wet asphalt. I jumped back. Not fast enough. The impact knocked me sideways and up. I hit the hood, then the pavement. My head cracked against the asphalt and white-hot pain detonated through my skull. I couldn't move. Couldn't breathe. Rain poured into my mouth and eyes. Everything was sideways and the world had gone wrong. Car door slamming. Footsteps splashing through water toward me, running. Oh my God, a woman's voice, terrified. Can you hear me? Don't move, honey. Don't try to move. I'm calling 911 right now, okay? I'm right here. Her hands on my shoulder. Gentle even in her panic. Warm. Stay with me. What's your name? I tried. Got out half of it. Your parents, I managed. Barely a whisper. Can you call my parents? Of course. Give me their number. They don't, I coughed. Tasted blood. They don't want me. They kicked me out. She went completely still above me. What? Her voice had changed entirely. My dad. He said I was messed up. Told me to get out. There was a silence between us then that I still think about. Just rain and wind and this woman kneeling in a puddle on a flooding street, holding a soaking wet 13-year-old she'd just accidentally hit with her car, processing what she'd just heard. You are going to be okay. Her voice shook, but it was steady underneath the shaking. I need you to hear me. You are going to be okay. Sirens in the distance, getting louder. Her face was the last thing I saw before everything went black. I don't remember the ambulance. My first clear memory is sound. Machines beeping their steady rhythm, fluorescent lights humming, the sharp, clean smell of antiseptic, and her voice cutting through all of it like a lifeline. She has a significant concussion and possible internal bleeding. She's 13 years old. She needs full observation and monitoring. I'm staying. Firm. Not a request. I am not leaving this child alone in this room. Ma'am, are you family? I'm the person who hit her with my car and I am staying until I know she is safe. I drifted in and out. Then I heard my parents' voices in the corridor. Dad's voice strained and controlled. Mom's tight. We're here for Natalie Reeves. Mr. and Mrs. Reeves. I'm Dr. Renee Harper. A pause. Recognition crackling across the silence. You're from the State University. The Social Equity Research Center. I am. Her voice was professionally cold in a way that was somehow worse than anger. I'm also the person who hit your 13-year-old daughter with my car tonight on Birchwood Avenue at 11 p.m. in a major floodstorm. I need you to explain to me why she was out there alone. We had a situation. A discipline issue. A discipline issue. She let those words just sit there. Tell me what kind of discipline issue leaves a 13-year-old child on foot in a flooding street with a dead phone and nowhere to go. Silence. Your daughter told me something before she lost consciousness, Mr. Reeves. She told me her parents had kicked her out. That her father called her messed up. She exaggerates. Tyler's voice, he'd come too. 15 years old, standing in a hospital corridor, using his most reasonable tone. She always does. She's very dramatic. She was losing consciousness on wet pavement. Dr. Harper's voice cut clean. She was not being dramatic. A police officer had arrived. My parents trying to explain something that kept changing shape the more they tried to tell it. Dr. Harper's footsteps coming back to my bedside. Her hand finding mine in the dark. "You're safe now," she said quietly, close to my ear. "I promise you. You are safe." I didn't know what to do with that. Safe had been a foreign concept for so long I'd stopped reaching for it. I woke up clearly 3 days later to find that my parents had come and gone. They'd left a bag of clothes and my school books at the foot of the bed. They'd stood there, apparently, told me I'd given them quite a scare, and left. Neither one said sorry. Neither asked if I wanted to come home. Tyler never came to the hospital at all. Dr. Harper was still there. Every single day she had come, with books, with questions about what I liked, what made me curious, what I imagined my life could look like someday. She spoke to me like I was a person worth speaking to, like my answers mattered. On the 5th day, a social worker named Brenda came with kind eyes and a quiet, careful voice. "Natalie, I want you to know that you have real options. You don't have to go back to that house." Where else would I go? The door knocked softly. Dr. Harper stepped in. She could stay with me. I stared at her. "What?" "I've already contacted the foster placement office and begun the paperwork. It's temporary while we figure out a longer-term arrangement, only if that's what you want." She sat down on the edge of the bed and looked at me directly. No performance. No pity. Just honesty. "I know you have absolutely no reason to trust me. We've known each other for 5 days. But I want to tell you something. When I was 19 years old, my own family decided they were finished with me. A professor took me in, gave me a room, and believed in me when I couldn't believe in myself. It changed the direction of my entire life." She put her hand over mine. "You have one of the sharpest, most curious minds I've come across in someone your age. Don't let what happened in that living room convince you that you're broken. Don't you dare let anyone convince you of that. Everything I'd been holding for years, every invisible achievement and swallowed word and night lying awake wondering what was actually wrong with me, cracked open all at once. I'll understand completely if you want to go home," she said softly. "But if you want something different, I'm right here." I looked at the door. I thought about my dad's pointing finger, about Mom not looking up, about Tyler's smile through the window as I walked into the rain. Then I looked at Renee Harper. I chose different. 6 months later, I barely recognized my own life. Renee's home was everything mine had never been. Quiet, steady, full of books and plants and the kind of peace that comes from a place where nobody is performing anything. She gave me the guest room and told me to make it mine. I painted it dark green and put star maps on the ceiling and slept better than I had in years. I transferred to a new school. Started completely fresh. Nobody there knew about Tyler, about my parents, about being the messed up daughter who got thrown out in the rain. I was just Natalie, focused, curious, finally learning to breathe. Renee opened up a world I hadn't known existed. University lectures I sat in on during weekends, policy conferences, dinners where professors argued passionately about child welfare systems and the thousands of kids who fell through cracks wide enough to swallow them whole. "Education is freedom," she told me more than once over homework at the kitchen table. "Knowledge is power. Nobody can ever take from you what you know." I threw myself at school the way you throw yourself at the only solid thing in a room that's tilting. Straight A's weren't just grades to me, they were proof. Proof I wasn't broken. Proof I wasn't wrong. Proof that what my dad said about me in that living room was his failure, not a fact about me. Senior year, I applied to 14 colleges. Got into 6. Full scholarship to the state's flagship university, majoring in social work with a minor in public policy. Renee's recommendation letter was described by the admissions director, who called to congratulate me as the most compelling letter I have read in 20 years of doing this work. "Graduation," Renee cried. I'd never once seen her cry in 5 years. She held both my hands and said, I am so unbelievably proud of you, and I believed her, which felt like its own kind of miracle. College was late nights and breakthroughs and slowly learning to trust people again. I wanted to understand the systems that failed kids like me, not just feel sad about them, but actually understand the machinery well enough to put a wrench in the right gear at the right time. By junior year, I was interning at a youth advocacy nonprofit downtown, learning how grant funding moved, how programs got built from scratch, how you turned genuine rage at injustice into something that actually helped someone. I graduated at 22 with honors, got hired immediately as a program coordinator at a youth services organization connected to the university. By 25, an idea had taken over my brain and wouldn't let go. A housing and education stabilization fund specifically for young people who had been pushed out of their homes. Runaways. Youth in foster care. Kids who'd been told, one way or another, that they weren't wanted. Kids who just needed one person to bet on them. I called it the Fresh Start Fund. Renee helped me write the grant proposals. We secured initial funding from 2 foundations and a state agency, launched as a pilot program, then expanded to 4 neighboring counties. By the time I was 28, the Fresh Start Fund had provided emergency housing support, counseling referrals, and educational grants to over 90 young people. Nearly $260,000 distributed. Local TV covered it. Social work journals wrote about it. A regional magazine called me one of the most effective advocates for at-risk youth in the state. My colleague Marcus Webb knocked on my office door one afternoon and said, "Nat, you've been nominated to keynote a graduation ceremony. Riverside University." My stomach dropped straight to the floor. "That's where Tyler goes," I said quietly. "He graduates this spring." Marcus sat down carefully. "Do you want me to decline?" I looked at the stack of case files on my desk. 90 young people. 90 second chances. A program built entirely from what happened to me on a flooding street 17 years ago. "What's the theme?" I asked. "Resilience and community impact. The president specifically requested you." I thought about Tyler at 32, sitting in a cap and gown, probably with a whole social circle who had no idea he had a sister. My parents in the audience, proud, completely unaware that the keynote speaker was the daughter they chose to leave in the rain. "Tell them I accept," I said. Complete creative control over my speech. That night over dinner, I told Renee everything. She listened the way she always did, completely, without interruption, without judgment. "What do you want to happen?" she asked. "I want to close the chapter," I said. "Not for revenge. For truth. My story matters. What I survived and what I built out of it, that matters. And standing on that stage showing them who I became despite them, that's not vengeance. That's just honest." She reached across and squeezed my hand. "Then do it with your head high. Let them see exactly who you are." I spent 2 weeks writing my speech. Drafted, cut, rebuilt, read it out loud to Renee until I could get through the whole thing without my voice cracking once. "Don't name anyone," Renee said. "Tell the truth and let people connect the dots themselves." I dressed carefully that morning. Deep burgundy blazer, black trousers. Renee's grandmother's gold earrings. She'd insisted I borrow them. In the mirror, I looked like someone who had built something real. Nothing like the soaked, shaking 13-year-old who had been told she was too messed up to keep. Campus was beautiful in the spring morning light. Old brick buildings, manicured quads, graduates everywhere in caps and gowns. Families crowding every open space to take photos. The air had that electricity that graduation days always carry, the specific charge of something ending and something else beginning. I arrived early, met President Caldwell in his office. Warm, enthusiastic, clearly thrilled. "Ms. Reeves, your work is extraordinary. Truly. The students are going to be so moved." I scanned the program backstage. Tyler Reeves, Bachelor of Science, Business Administration. Row 4. 32 years old, finishing his degree later than most, but finishing it. Renee arrived in a beautiful deep blue dress and pulled me into a long, tight hug. You've got this. I know, I said. And I meant it. President Caldwell touched my shoulder. 5 minutes. Please welcome the founder and executive director of the Fresh Start Fund, Ms. Natalie Reeves. The applause rose. I walked into the light. The stage was vast. Hundreds of faces stretched out before me, caps and gowns, family members filling every seat, the low expectant hum of a crowd settling in. And then I found them. Row 4. Tyler in his gown, honor cords around his neck, sitting next to a woman who was laughing at something he'd just said. He was clapping, half turned toward her, and then something made him look up at the stage. His hands froze mid-clap. His smile dropped like someone had cut a wire. Confusion. Then recognition. Then pure shock. All three moving across his face in the space of 2 seconds, and then his mouth opened and nothing came out. Behind him, row 9. Mom and Dad still applauding politely, not looking closely yet, just giving a speaker the standard welcome. I reached the podium, adjusted the microphone, looked out over all those faces. Good morning. Thank you, President Caldwell, for that generous introduction. My voice carried clean and strong across the entire auditorium. Dad's head snapped up sharply. He leaned forward, squinting, trying to place the voice. Mom's hand went straight to her chest. It is an honor to be here. Today I want to talk about resilience, about what happens when you lose everything and how you find yourself on the other side of that. The room settled into the kind of quiet that happens when people are genuinely listening. Let me tell you about a 13-year-old girl. I kept my voice even and conversational, like I was telling a story I'd already made peace with, because I had. She was a straight-A student. She won science competitions. She'd never been in trouble a day in her life. And one November night, her father told her she was messed up and put her outside her front door in the middle of a flood storm. Uncomfortable shifting in the crowd. Whispers beginning to thread through the rows. She was 13 years old. She had nowhere to go. Her phone was dying. The people she called didn't answer. Mom had gripped Dad's arm. I could see it from the stage, her knuckles white against his sleeve. She walked alone in that storm. And she was hit by a car. She nearly died on a wet street in the dark, 13 years old, because the people who were supposed to protect her had decided, based on someone else's lie, that she wasn't worth protecting. Tyler had gone completely still. Completely. Not a single movement. But someone stopped. Someone got out of that car and stayed. Someone saw a child worth saving where everyone else had seen a problem worth getting rid of. Renee in the front row. Eyes bright and full. She nodded once, the smallest nod. That person became her family. Her mentor. The mother she needed in every way that actually matters. I paused. Let the silence hold. That 13-year-old girl was me. The auditorium went silent. Not polite quiet, the held breath silence of 400 people processing something at the same time. Dad lurched half out of his seat. Mom pulled him back down. Tyler looked like he wanted to disappear through the floor. Students around him were already leaning toward each other, whispering, glancing between his face and the stage. I'm here today because Dr. Renee Harper, I gestured to her, and she gave a small wave, tears on her cheeks, didn't give up on me when my own family did. She taught me that rejection isn't the end of your story. It's just the end of a chapter that someone else was writing for you. The Fresh Start Fund exists because of what happened to me that night. It exists for young people who've been told they're not enough, dismissed, abandoned, cast out by the people who were supposed to choose them. Because being rejected does not define you. I looked directly at Tyler, made eye contact and held it. What you do after that defines you. Tyler's face crumpled. His head dropped. This program has helped over 90 young people stay housed, stay in school, stay alive, and stay hopeful. 90 people who needed someone to bet on them. I let that land. Family isn't always biology. Sometimes it's a choice. Sometimes it's the person who gets out of the car. You don't need everyone to believe in you. You just need one person who sees past the lies, past the performance, past the version of you that someone else created to protect themselves. Tyler's shoulders were shaking. Success is not about proving people wrong. It's about building something meaningful despite them. I looked across all those young faces, wide-eyed, hopeful, ready. To the graduating class of Riverside University, your worth is not determined by who stays. It is determined by how you grow after they leave. You will face people who underestimate you, who write you off, who choose their own comfort over your truth. That is guaranteed. But you get to decide what happens next. You get to choose who you become. The standing ovation started slow, then built like a wave, students first, then faculty, then families rising in the back. Not everyone. Dad stayed in his seat, gray-faced, both hands over his eyes. Mom stood mechanically, clapping with no strength in it, mascara running in dark lines down her face. Tyler didn't move. Just sat there staring at his own lap, completely still while the whole room stood around him. I stepped back from the podium. Breathed out. It was done. Tyler Reeves, Bachelor of Science, Business Administration. He walked across that stage with a smile so tight it looked painful. His hands shook as he took the diploma. The applause for him was scattered. His close friends tried, but around them people just watched and whispered. He got off that stage as fast as he could. Marcus found me in the reception area outside. Natalie, I had no idea. Are you okay? I genuinely am. Renee found me and held on. You did it. We did it. Your parents are asking to speak to you. Side entrance. My stomach tightened. 5 minutes, I said. My terms. They were by a pillar near the side exit. Dad looked a decade older than the man in Tyler's graduation photos. Mom's mascara was wrecked. And Tyler, at 32 years old, the golden son, the charming one, stood behind them looking small in a way I had never seen him look before. I stopped 3 feet away. Professional distance. You wanted to talk. Natalie, Dad's voice cracked immediately. We didn't know you'd be here. I know you didn't. You look, Mom's voice broke. You look wonderful. I am wonderful. Dr. Harper made sure of that. We owe you an apology, Dad said. You owe me significantly more than that. But start with the apology. We were wrong. Mom said it like she'd been rehearsing it, and it still fell apart halfway through. We should have listened to you. We should have protected you. That is literally what parents are for. Yes, it is. My voice stayed level. Not angry. I hadn't been angry in years. Just clear. You chose Tyler's lie over my truth. You called me messed up. You put a 13-year-old out in a flood storm. And I nearly died on that street. I know. Dad's voice was completely wrecked. I have known it every day for 17 years. Good. Silence. Can we talk somewhere privately? Mom reached toward me. As a family? We're not a family, I said gently. Not to wound, just as a fact. You made that choice 17 years ago. I accepted it a long time ago. Natalie. Tyler's voice. Barely above a whisper. I looked at him. He looked terrible. Eyes raw and swollen, none of the easy confidence I'd watched him carry for years. Just a 32-year-old man who'd had the lie he'd been living inside for 17 years collapse in public. I'm sorry, he said. I am so sorry. Go ahead. He swallowed hard. I was 15. I thought, I convinced myself I was just protecting myself, that you were already going to say something to Jade about me. But that wasn't true. I made the whole thing up because I was threatened by you. You were 13 and already better at everything than I was, and our parents could see it even if they never said it out loud, and I hated that. He looked at his shoes. I planned it. The fake screenshots, the bruise. I slammed my own arm against my desk drawer 3 times to get it dark enough. I planned every piece of it. A 15-year-old slamming his own arm against a drawer to manufacture evidence against his 13-year-old sister. Let that land. I watched you walk into that storm from the window, he said. I felt sick the second the door shut. I almost told Mom, but I was too scared. So instead I kept going. For 17 years I kept going. I told people you didn't exist. I told people you died. His voice broke. I am so sorry. I forgive you, I said. Not for you, for me. Because I put that weight down a long time ago and I'm not picking it back up. He looked up. But I don't want a relationship with you. Not now, maybe not ever. You had 17 years to find your courage. You chose not to. Every single year was a choice. That's not a teenage mistake anymore, that's who you decided to be. I need you to respect my boundary. Tyler's friends had drifted over, 3 of them hovering uncertainly. One woman in a yellow dress looked at Tyler with an expression that had gone cold. You told us last year that your sister passed away in an accident when you were a kid. Tyler flinched like he'd been hit. You said you were an only child, another one said. You said it at your birthday dinner. You looked us right in the eye. They walked away. Tyler watched them go. President Caldwell appeared, beaming. Ms. Reeves. Finest keynote we've had in years. Absolutely extraordinary. He shook my hand warmly, then turned to my parents. You must be so proud. Your daughter has literally saved lives with this program. Silence. They are, Renee said smoothly. Aren't you? Dad's jaw worked. Yes. Very proud. Caldwell swept away. Dad stared at me with the look of a man finally seeing something clearly after years of choosing not to look. We had no idea you'd built all of this. You never asked. You erased me. Why would you know? I looked at Renee. Ready to go home? She linked her arm through mine. Been ready. We walked away. I didn't look back. Behind me I could hear Tyler saying my name, quiet, desperate, 17 years too late. Kept walking. For the first time in 17 years I felt completely free. The week after graduation, voicemails stacked up that I didn't return. Emails from Mom that were long on excuses and short on real accountability. An email from Tyler 3 days later that I almost deleted but read instead. He told me the whole thing. That he'd been threatened by me for years because I was younger and still outpacing him at everything, and our parents' pride in my achievements was a mirror he couldn't stand to look into. That the Jade situation had been the final trigger. He'd seen me with Caleb in the parking lot and his jealousy had snapped. He'd spent 2 days before that Friday building fake screenshots from a cloned profile, sending them into the school baseball team group chat from a fake account made to look like mine. He'd given himself the bruise deliberately, slamming his own arm against his desk drawer 3 times to get it dark enough. He wrote, When I saw you walk into that storm, I knew I'd crossed a line I couldn't come back from. And instead of crossing back anyway, I just kept going. I told myself you'd be fine. I told myself it wasn't that bad. I let myself believe those things for 17 years because the alternative was living with what I actually did. I'm not asking you to forgive me. I just need you to know that I know. I wrote back once, short and final, Tyler, I forgive you for my own peace. But I meant what I said. Please don't contact me again. He stopped. My speech had gone viral. Not the whole ceremony, just that section from Let Me Tell You About a 13-year-old Girl. 70,000 views, then 150,000. Comments pouring in. This woman is incredible. Family isn't blood, it's who shows up. I cried watching this. Applications to the Fresh Start Fund tripled in a month. County agencies called. A national conference invited me to speak. Two universities wanted to partner. Renee and I had dinner 3 weeks after the ceremony, just the two of us. "How are you actually doing?" she asked. I thought about it honestly. Like I finally put down something I'd been carrying so long I forgot it wasn't part of me. She smiled at that. That's exactly what happened. 1 year on, the Fresh Start Fund was running in 8 counties. We'd helped 114 young people. Over $310,000 distributed. The state board gave me a formal commendation. 3 national publications ran pieces on the program. I was promoted to executive director. Renee and I spoke at a national conference together in Atlanta. Stayed up too late in the hotel restaurant talking about everything and nothing, just talking the way a mother and daughter do when they've built something real. One afternoon after speaking at another school's graduation, a young woman caught me coming off the stage. 20 years old, eyes red. "That was my story," she said. "My family pushed me out at 15. I thought no one would ever get it." "You're surviving it," I told her. "That's more than enough." She hugged me hard. I drove home that evening to the house Renee and I shared and sat in the driveway for a minute with the engine off, listening to nothing but quiet. Complete peace. Kind I used to think was only for people whose lives hadn't gone sideways. Every year on November 14th, the anniversary of the storm, I drive past my old house. Not to hurt myself. Just to remember. I park across the street and look at those windows and that door and I think, that girl survived. 13 years old, thrown out into a flood storm by the people who were supposed to be her safe place, hit by a car, nearly gone. She survived. And she built something. People ask me if I regret that night, if I'd change it if I could. I don't. And I know how that sounds. But that storm, that hospital, that woman who got out of the car and stayed, it led me exactly here. To this work. To this family I chose. I got lucky and I know it. Not every 13-year-old walking in the rain gets a Renee Harper. That's precisely why the Fresh Start Fund exists. To be that stop for as many kids as possible as consistently as possible so luck stops being the deciding factor. Here's what I know at 30 years old. Tyler being 2 years older than me made his lie worse, not better. He was 15. He had more capacity, more maturity, more understanding of consequences. He chose to use all of that to build something designed to destroy me. And my parents, adults, people who had known me my entire life, chose to believe a teenager's performance over their own daughter's truth, without asking a single question. That's not a mistake. That's a choice. And choices have consequences that last. Blood doesn't make family. Choice does. Consistency does. Showing up does. Renee showed up every single day for 17 years and earned the title mom in every way that counts. My biological parents showed up once in a hospital, said almost nothing, and left. Forgiveness and reconciliation are not the same thing. You can release someone from your anger and still keep them out of your life. Both are healthy. Neither cancels the other. And your worth, your actual worth, is not determined by who stays. It is determined by how you grow after they leave. If you are in a storm right now, whatever that storm looks like, know this. You can survive it. You can build something extraordinary out of the wreckage. Just because someone gave up on you does not mean you give up on yourself. Set your limits. Choose your people. Build your purpose. And don't you ever let anyone convince you that you are too broken to keep. You're not broken. You never were. You are exactly enough. Thank you so much for staying with me until the end. If this story helped you in any way, please hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Your support helps these stories reach others who need to hear them. And if you want more stories like this, check the description below. Take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next story.